in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha to bring about the changes it wanted, to bring about the Citizenship Amendment Bill 2019. So that's now cleared the parliament hurdle, just now has to be signed by the president before it actually officially becomes a law. What it essentially does is allows the government to give citizenship of our country to illegal immigrants from 3 different nations, Afghanistan, Pakistan and Bangladesh, provided they are one of the 6 religions that have been mentioned in this bill. That's Hindus, Buddhists, Sikhs, Parsis, Jains and Christians. And if they are one of these 6 religions, then they can become a citizen of India now. Quick comment from Vinay before we actually take you through some of the interesting speeches and excerpts of the debate that Rajya Sabha saw today. But Sonia Gandhi, in fact, has just issued a statement saying, "Today marks a dark day in the constitutional history of India. Passage of the Citizenship Amendment Bill marks victory of narrow-minded and bigoted forces over India's pluralism. Bill challenges the idea of India that our forefathers fought for." So the parties who were opposing this, from Congress to the TMC, now taking to social media or issuing statements saying, well, this is a dark day where morality has lost, even if majority has won, Vinay. Of course, it remains to be seen the actual practical impact of it. How many people really in our country, in some of those refugee camps, or who've been here for a while, end up becoming Indian citizens?
Yes, and I think while the government has managed to pass the floor test currently now in Rajya Sabha as well, I think the 2 biggest challenges now for the government start from here on. One is, of course, I think the massive uproar that seems to have happened in Northeast. I don't think the government fully anticipated the extent of the uproar and the violence that seems to have happened there. There is massive outrage and resentment in that part of India. And of course, the likely legal challenge that may come to this case, because enough and more members have said so in the parliament, in both houses, that this particular law will be violative of Article 14 of the Constitution that guarantees right to equality. So I think this will probably head the legal route as well. But more importantly, I really do believe that now the challenge is on the government. Remember, the BJP right now is in a much more stronger position in the Northeast than it ever was before. They are ruling now in states. And now the challenge on maintaining law and order and to ensure that this boil that Northeast is suddenly hit into is contained and it is managed. Because Northeast was fairly peaceful. In fact, the very promise that the government had made since 2014 onwards, when they actually made the Look Northeast policy, was this area has for long ignored development and it is only about insurgency and violence, and they need to bring back development. This will set them back a bit. And that's the biggest challenge, because in a situation like this, when a violence prolongs, you really won't have much development.
It's also sending conflicted signals, and we had a big face from the Northeast yesterday. Filmmaker Barua was with us, and he said that, well, it always happens for the people in Northeast that the center doesn't understand, that the center betrays, and essentially that sentiment probably is what we're looking at right now on the streets. It's a manifestation of every time how the central government or the rest of India doesn't understand the problem, the essence of the issue for the northeastern states, and which is why probably they're not buying the assurances that the government has given now. And Amit Shah repeatedly spoke about it, saying it doesn't apply to the northeastern states, that they will be exempted from this law, so they have nothing to worry. I actually wanted to highlight this to our viewers, that those are the numbers. The bill obviously has passed in Rajya Sabha. Now 117 in the favor of the Citizenship Amendment Bill and 92 who voted against. Shiv Sena walked out, abstained from this voting. They walked out before the entire voting process began. And we are also given to understand that there are 2 MPs of the BSP as well who were not present in the House for this crucial vote. So that's the total tally. 209 votes came in, and of those, 117 were in the favor of this bill. On one hand, the parliament Rajya Sabha has been debating this through the day since 12 noon. On the other hand, like Vinay was also saying, we've actually seen protests take place across Northeast. Internet has been shut down in many parts in Assam and Tripura. There have been violent protests that we've seen in several other states. And even as we speak, there's a bit of an unrest. Let's listen into, in fact, what's happening in the Rajya Sabha.
That the Lok Sabha sitting held on the 11th of December 2019 passed the International
You can't say it
Financial
now.
Services
Do you have the
Centres
total listing with
Authority
you?
Bill
If there is
2019.
anything, one can
I lay
write to
a
the
copy
chairman.
of the bill on the table.
So, okay. Parliament Affairs Minister.
सर एक रिक्वेस्ट है सर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन अमेंडमेंट बिल
Wait, Minister.
सर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन अमेंडमेंट बिल है सर विदाउट डिस्कशन वो पारित कर सकते हैं सर SC ST रिजर्वेशन ऑफ एक्सटेंशन है सर विदाउट
I can't do it.
कर सकते हैं
See, please.
लीडर
That is
ऑफ
not the way.
अपोजिशन कोऑपरेट किया तो हो
Please.
जाता है
See, the question is that the supplementary agenda has to be circulated and then amendments has to be received. Then chairman has to accept it and then time has to be given. That's why in spite of the minister making a personal request to me also earlier, I told him, let us take it up tomorrow because it's an important bill and there is thing. So we will be, with the consent of the House, we will be taking up the bill after the 0 hour is over tomorrow. On priority, a constituent amendment bill. Please.
Sir, please. Sir, just one. Sir.
Unless there is order, I can't hear anything.
Sir, just one. Sir, दो सप्ताह में कोई 2 weeks में कोई short duration discussion नहीं हुआ.
That's not the issue. Doubt to discuss.
Question hour आज भी नहीं हुआ.
एक दिन क्वेश्चन आवर आपके कारण से नहीं हुआ, एक दिन उनके कारण से नहीं हुआ, मैं क्या करूं? मेरे कारण से कोई हुआ नहीं. So you want to have question hour?
2 बजे. Sir, 2 p.m. we want question hour tomorrow.
बस ना, उतना ही कहिए फिर.
What is this?
Okay, if they've just some clarity now coming in versus what the board initially showed in terms of numbers of votes, the final number that has come in after verification is 125 votes in favor, and this is the Rajya Sabha we're talking about, where obviously now the government has managed to get a majority of those votes, 125 votes in favor of this bill, not 117 as it was showing. But I want to quickly take you through some of the highlights of the debate that took place. What is it that the opposition kept saying? They kept saying that this bill is divisive, that it is anti-Muslim, that it is further going to divide people in our country, that it is not constitutional. It goes against Article 14 of our constitution that says that there will be no discrimination on the basis of religion, caste or creed. Here is an excerpt, some of the highlights from today's speech.
Parliamentarians are being asked to do something unconstitutional, and then the baby is passed on to the judiciary, and in the judiciary, lawyers and judges will decide what you have done is constitutional or not. Knowing this is unconstitutional, I'm afraid this government is ramming through this bill in order to advance its Hindutva agenda. This is a sad day. Thankfully, they're not amending the constitution.
Minority के खिलाफ ये बिल विशेषकर मुस्लिम समुदाय के खिलाफ. मान्यवर मैं पूछना चाहता हूं, जो इस देश के मुसलमान है, इसके लिए इस देश के अंदर कोई चर्चा का, कोई चिंता का सवाल ही नहीं है. वो नागरिक है, रहेंगे, उनको कोई प्रताड़ित नहीं. यहाँ के माइनॉरिटी और विशेषकर किसी भी मुसलमान को चिंता करने की जरूरत नहीं है. ये मैं स्पष्टता के साथ कहना चाहता हूं, किसी को भी चिंता करने की.
जो शख्स कह रहा है कि मैं तो हिंदुस्तान का रहने वाला हूं, आप उसको कहना चाहते हो नहीं नहीं तुम हिंदुस्तान के रहने वाले नहीं हो, तुम कहो तो तुम तो बांग्लादेश से आए थे और क्यों परसिक्यूट हो रहे थे, इसलिए हम आपको सिटीजनशिप देंगे. ये किस किस्म का कानून है? आप क्या कर रहे हो संविधान के साथ? आप धज्जियां उड़ा रहे हो संविधान से.
Article 14 does not bar this particular amendment, because it has been in number of judgments. You can't just read blindly the Article 14 what it says. Article 14 has been undergone many scrutiny in many court cases.
Well, so those were the kind of face-off that we actually saw in the Rajya Sabha today. But despite the fiery debate, despite Congress trying to put up a tough front, despite TMC, rallying behind the Congress party as well, the opposition was not able to stop the bill from passing in Rajya Sabha. Citizenship Amendment Bill has now passed the parliament hurdle. The next stop, of course, is the president's clearance, and then it will officially become a law in this country. Amit Shah was literally the home minister of our country who pushed through this bill. But I just want you to understand what we are witnessing. Apart from, of course, the outrage across the country, apart from the big debate that's been taking place in our country right now, whether or not this is a good bill, whether or not it is a good policy to have for 3 specific nations, illegal immigrants from those nations, and whether or not it is good to have a policy that decides citizenship on the basis of religion. But here is what is happening on the other hand. And tonight, a larger focus will also be on this. Why is it that Northeast India is on the edge? That we saw violent protests erupt one more time. Exactly what we saw in the month of February as well has played out again one more time in December 2019. From Assam to Meghalaya and Tripura, across the states of Northeast, there were violent protests that took place today. As we speak, internet has been shut down, including Guwahati. That's what we are looking at right now. In fact, I just want to quickly get in a comment from Vinay as well before we say good evening to all of our panelists who are joining us on top of 9 o'clock. But, Vinay, this will be one of the things that the government will have to look into. Already, reports have emerged that forces have been pulled out of Kashmir and moved to Northeast.
Yes, and I think that's where the whole clock and the 360 cycle of Northeast comes back. Northeast has, all the states of Northeast, in fact, have faced very violent 80s, so to speak, from the Delhi massacre to all the other insurgent movements that happened in the small states of Northeast. Then a more peaceful 90s, a prosperous early part of 2000s, and again, a politically, I would say, changing environment in the last 6 years or so. Seems to have all been undone with this wave of violence. And now, with Kashmir already being a very strong flashpoint for Indian government, where paramilitary forces have been ushered in, now this divided conflict zone, if it continues this way, it's going to be a big challenge for the government. And I think that's where the real worry is.
The government seems to be very well aware of that as well, because already today we were told that Amit Shah himself is going to be traveling to Northeast next week. So the Home Minister himself will personally be going to some of these states as an outreach, and obviously security forces have been moved in. But like you said, it will be a challenge.
It will be a challenge. I mean, I think they probably underestimated the level of protests that happened there. I think they've kind of assumed that once they do the ILP and the Schedule 6 bar, protests won't happen. And I think despite all those assurances, people are not exactly feeling very assuaged by it.
So just for the understanding of our viewers, and we'll go across to Arindam in just a bit to get the latest update from Assam. But Vinay, this 6th schedule and inner line permit already puts most of the northeastern states in a separate category with different rules for
them. Manipur wasn't there, but the Home Minister clarified in the Lok Sabha that will be added as well. So technically, except for some parts of Assam, most of it is actually out of the ambit, so to speak. But you see, that's where the complication is. And I think your original point that you were making some time back about a lot of people in Northeast feeling that the rest of India or the center doesn't quite understand that part of the country is perhaps true. Because this is not just about ILP or about Schedule 6. This issue and the fissures between, say, the Bengali migrants, the Muslims and the original tribals and the Khasis and other people there is much deeper than this. It's not something very simple. We saw a bit of that playing out when the NRC was being implemented, and now everything that the NRC did has in some ways been undone by the CAB because it's just renewed completely new issues there. And I think that's where the complication. I think the government underestimated it. They probably thought that assuaging will happen. It hasn't happened.
Okay, so maybe better communication and better messaging will have to go from the government, and that will be the the job of the leaders who are in charge of Northeast, along with the Home Minister himself, who's taken it upon himself. Now, let me quickly go across to Arindam on the phone line with us. Internet services are down, so it's difficult to get Arindam live for us right now, but he's been reporting through the day. Arindam, what is the situation in Assam?
Well, the situation is very tense and volatile across the Northeast. In fact, a curfew has been imposed in Guwahati for an indefinite period now. Internet services have been suspended. And even now, there are violent protests happening across Guwahati, across Assam and the Northeast. So the protests are not dying down. And even when the bill was tabled in the Lok Sabha, protests have erupted and it intensified. And today, right now, it has also got a clearance in the upper house. So the protests are likely to intensify further, and it is going to be volatile and violent.
Okay, Arindam, the big, as you bring us these details and we are playing out visuals from what we saw in Dispur today as well, where property was also set ablaze. There was a lot of violence that took place. Why is this happening, Arindam? The government has said that the indigenous villages and districts of Assam will not be under this law. Most of the other northeastern states have also been excluded. Why is there still anger on the streets tonight?
Well, you see, Assam has seen a historic Assam movement, which was an anti-foreigner, anti-influx movement. And after this historic Assam movement, the historic Assam Accord was signed. So the main signatures of this Assam Accord, the All Assam Students Union Fields, which is right now spearheading most of the rallies, feels that this bill is a clear violation of the Assam Accord. They are saying that a foreigner is a foreigner. He cannot be discriminated on the basis of his religion. So Assam has already taken the load of enough foreigners here in Assam and Northeast since 1971. And right now they will in no way accept a single foreigner here to be settled in Assam. And they have said that the BJP, they were very much clear. They knew that the bill would get passed in both houses of the parliament because NDA has got the numbers, but they have made it clear that the protests will intensify, and in no way the BJP will be allowed to apply this bill in the Northeast.
Okay, so the situation is actually getting worse right now, and we'll have to see how it develops. Like Arindam is pointing out right now, there has been a curfew that's now been imposed in many parts, including in Guwahati, and this curfew has been imposed indefinitely. Vinay, that's also a very, very, strong step that they've had to take, and it's not a limited period. So it's not just the internet that's been shut down. There are strict measures now being taken.
Yes, so army has moved into at least one state. So Tripura, the two columns have been moved in.
Yes.
Those may be smaller numerically, but the very optics of moving the army means situation is not under control. And we were also told that the army has been put on alert and standby to move quickly even in Assam. So obviously the situation doesn't look like it's going to calm down anytime soon. And as Arindam is reporting, there seems to be this, which I think what he was saying is exactly what you were discussing earlier. The old fissures of Northeast, yes, including the genesis of the Assam movement, correct, the Accord, and then, so all of that has come back. And I think it's those fears that have come back, which is what has led to many people in that part of the country to say that maybe the center doesn't quite understand the complexities that exist in the 7 different states.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, Arindam, we'll keep coming back to you as you get us more updates. The situation in Northeast is worsening, especially in parts of Assam right now, and we're going to get those updates constantly for our viewers. Let me also say good evening to Clyde Crasto, spokesperson of the NCP, Raghav Avasthi, lawyer, joining us from Delhi, Neerja Chowdhury, senior journalist, Rajiv Pandey of the BJP, and Arijit Sen, senior journalist, joining us from Kolkata. In fact, Mr. Sen, if I could come to you first and ask you for your view on what's happening on ground and this response that we're seeing from northeastern states. The government has now repeatedly made it clear that, most of Northeast, barring a part of Assam, will not come under this bill. How is it that that's not, convincing the people and we are still seeing anger spill out on streets?
The basic reason why this is not going to sort of calm down or allay all fears of people is that there's a time travel which has happened back to the time of the Assam agitation. And there are different interest groups which are involved in this. And the insider-outsider sort of divide, who belongs, who doesn't, who is a citizen, who is a non-citizen, all of this has come to the center. And that's the reason why you see such intensified protests. What are the different groups which are carrying out these protests? What's the reason why they're carrying out these protests? A microanalysis will probably sort of throw up different kinds of sort of feelings and fears. But what you cannot sort of wash away is the aspect of stigmatization, which a lot of people in Northeast are facing right now. And this includes people who are who might be Hindus, who might be Muslims. There are detention centers, 6 of them inside jails in Assam. There are other detention centers which are coming up. There are detention centers which are being built in different parts of India, in Navi Mumbai, in Bangalore. So there's this entire sort of fear which is coming up in terms of people who have been left out of the NRC, and what the Citizenship Amendment Bill is going to do, particularly for people who are Muslims. So this seems to be a targeted exercise which is pushing one agenda. The entire Citizenship Amendment Bill, if you see, it doesn't stand the test of what the Constitution tells us. Why is this reasonable? Why are we offering people who are sort of Hindus belonging to our neighboring countries citizenship, and why are we not including others? Also the object of this, why are we doing this? What was the hurry of doing this? Also, what has interestingly happened in Manipur, for example, where there was this entire protest against Citizenship Amendment Bill, and before that, there was this entire sort of demand for the inner line permit.
Correct.
So all of that, suddenly the inner line permit demand had actually died down. And now suddenly it's almost like a quid pro quo that the central government has said that, okay, fine, we will introduce inner line permit. And suddenly groups are saying that, okay, fine, let's then take it easy, that inner line permit has been introduced and maybe our fears will be assuaged. So there is a lot of complexity, but one clear thing which overrides all this complexity is the aspect of polarization. This aspect of polarization and Islamophobia, which is against the basic idea of the Indian Constitution, which is secularism.
Yes.
There is the twin test which this bill fails.
Yes.
And this is the aspect of reasonability. Why is this reasonable? Why are you doing this? And also, what is the objective you're going to achieve out of this, which is, as it appears, a Hindu state. And that's very scary for people who are Indians. As we know, most of the people who have been in detention centers all this while are Indian citizens. And a large majority of them are Hindus. So will they have to now go and say that, okay, fine, we've come to India because we face religious persecution. So there are enough and more sort of complexities, and this is clearly sort of polarizing people, and this is also clearly dividing people and stigmatizing them. There have been
there is definitely
at
a
least
fear,
50 instances of people who've taken their lives.
There is definitely a fear from what I can see. If people are stepping out on streets, there is some amount of fear, there is some amount of skepticism of what is being brought in, and there is obviously a little bit of disbelief and distrust in terms of what the government is saying. Raghav Avasthi, do you believe that the government underestimated what the states of Northeast were expecting, what they were demanding? They were promised that all the outsiders will be thrown out, but that doesn't seem to be happening right now.
Exactly. So the promise was that all outsiders will be thrown out, but we have to now also understand how the outsiders came in the first place. PC Barua, who was a Congress chief minister, went on record to say that as long as Ali, that is Bengali Muslims, that is Muslims, coolies, tea garden workers and Bengalis, that is Bangladeshis, are on our side, nobody can defeat us. So this is what led to the Assam agitation in the first place. Then after the Assam Accord was agreed upon, the Congress government came up with the spurious IMDT Act, which was struck down by the Supreme Court because under that act, it was impossible to prove who was an infiltrator. So the situation is that as far as the NRC is concerned, this gentleman was talking about building of detention centers. We have to understand that the BJP government has done more work than any other government. The Congress party was in bed with the likes of Badruddin Ajmal, who want Assam to be swarmed by Bangladeshi Muslims. The BJP wants to make a distinction. This government wants to make a distinction. And this distinction applies not just to Assam, but throughout the country. There are Hindus who are persecuted in Pakistan, Afghanistan and Bangladesh. Liberals of this country tell us that our heart should bleed for Palestinians. I say that before your heart bleeds for Palestinians, it should bleed for Hindus in your neighborhood who are being persecuted because of these theocratic states. So the polarization, the push for polarization is not coming from India. The push for polarization is coming from neighboring countries.
I think the difference is pick and choose who your heart bleeds for, and you see a difference in there, and your heart only bleeds for Hindus and Sikhs and Christians, and the so-called liberals, as per your labeling and not mine, are actually saying your heart should bleed the same way for anybody who is being targeted, who needs refuge or asylum and is seeking your help.
So now let me come to the aspect of Article 14.
So it's different. Either throw everybody out.
To the aspect of Article
Either
14.
throw everybody out or decide and have a citizenship policy which is not based on religion, Raghav.
Let me complete, no? Yeah, let me come in here. this is where Article 14 comes in. If you read the statement of objects and reasons of this Amendment Act, now it's not yet an act, it's still a bill unless it's signed by the President.
Correct.
It says that the purpose is to protect persecuted minorities from 3 countries. So this is the purpose. The Supreme Court has said that if you differentiate, then the differentiation has to have it first of all has to be on the basis of an intelligible differentia. So the intelligible differentia is that you distinguish between people belonging to religions that are being persecuted and people belonging to religions that are not being persecuted. So that's the intelligible differentia. The rational nexus, the nexus of that it has with the object of the legislation is that the legislation seeks to protect religious minorities not from Myanmar and all of the other countries, but
because
only
we don't
3
care
countries.
about those being persecuted in Myanmar. Why do we care about Rohingyas? No, I know what you're saying. Why do we care? Why does your party, why does this government care about Rohingyas? Why does this government care about Ahmadiyas? Why does this government care about the Balochis? This government only cares about Pakistani Hindus or Bangladeshi Hindus.
The Ahmadiyas are an ethnic group.
You know, Raghav, what you're throwing at me right now, you know it, and I know it.
Fully paid up subscribers to the idea of Pakistan.
Rajiv Pandey knows it.
You don't let me complete. No, let me at least complete.
Oh, I got your point. I got your point. Now, 1 minute, please. May I just listen to me? Listen to me. What you're giving me right now is a legal googly. What you're giving me right now is how you protect this bill legally speaking.
It's not a legal
What I am saying is it's convenient for a government to pick up only 3 countries, the Islamic countries, and talk about religious minorities only in these 3 countries and not talk about any of our other neighbors. We only care about the minorities in these 3 countries. That's that.
Tanvi ji,
That's the question.
You have to understand that. You have to understand that the bill, the differentiation that this bill makes has to be tested on the touchstone of the object of this bill. If this bill pertains only to 3 countries and persecuted religious minorities in these 3 countries, then we can obviously not concern ourselves with what is happening in Myanmar or China or wherever else for the purpose of this bill. That's the point I'm trying to make.
I know, that's exactly what I'm saying. So I'm just saying that's a smart way of glossing over a move which is still primarily based on helping out people and illegal immigrants of a specific religion, whereas calling the illegal immigrants of another religion as infiltrators. Bangladeshi Muslims in our country are infiltrators, and Bangladeshi Hindus are those poor people who need our help. Okay, fine. Point taken. This is what you're saying. I want to go across to Neerja Chowdhury.
Their priests are being beheaded. Temples are being desecrated. What else do you want?
Even the country of Bangladesh has turned around and said, I don't know what you're talking about. There is no such religious persecution going on. Neerja Chowdhury, is the timing also interesting?
In Bangladesh, there is enough.
What is the emergency right now that we are facing in countries like Pakistan or Bangladesh? That such a specific law. 1 minute, Raghav. Now, such a specific law. 1 minute, Raghav. May I please go across to our other panelists, and I want to go across to Neerja Chowdhury. What is it that is happening so bad in the country of Bangladesh or Pakistan that we wanted to bring in a law just for these countries and not talk about the Tibetans or not talk about the Sri Lankans, who are in our country, but only focus, or even Myanmar, and only focus on these 3 countries? Is the religious persecution so grave in these 2 nations? Neerja Chowdhury.
I think from what the Home Minister has said, that this is something they have been committed to in their manifesto. That is the justification the Home Minister gave in both houses of Parliament, and therefore they are bringing it. Now, that is their explanation. You know what it's going to do, Tanvi? I hope this is not going to happen, but Eastern India is going to be now on the boil. You have Jammu and Kashmir where there's a lockdown, which is not, the government says they're lifting it, but the situation there is far from normal if you talk to people there. And now, as we see today, Northeast is anyway so turbulent. Army on standby in Assam, army out in Tripura, again standby in Meghalaya, and everywhere, things are just coming to the boil. So your question, why so? And this is going to deepen the fault lines, not just Hindu-Muslim. You know, you asked the question, why these three countries? Because they are theocratic states, Islamic states, and why go only for religious persecution? Therefore, leave the Muslims out. It's only the non-Muslims who will be covered by it. So, you know, the Muslim versus rest thing is getting reinforced and deepened. And I think the message also is to Muslims, by leaving them out, they are the only category you're leaving. I'm not going into the legality of it or the justification of it. Just look at the messages that are coming across. To the Muslims, that you are less than equal, you're not important in this country. And what does it do to their self-esteem, their security, all that? Those are, if you're a Muslim today in India, yes, they would be worried, they will feel beleaguered, they'll be very, very insecure, fearful. The other fault line that's getting deepened is tribal versus Bengali migrant, which is an old fault line in the Northeast. Yes. And the fact that despite the inner line permit that being promised by the Home Minister, these communities are also feeling so apprehensive in the Northeast of India. And then, of course, again, the old fault line of Assamese versus Bengali. Now, you may ask, what is the benefit of it? We cannot say for certain, but certainly it seems to me, if you were to decode it in political terms, is the BJP dumping the Assamese who they had wooed before the elections and over the last years, and the tribal communities of the Northeast of India, to woo the Bengalis of West Bengal, where elections are going to be due in 2021, and that is 42 seats, a very important state that the BJP has targeted. And the Bengalis certainly will look in the Northeast towards, if they get citizenship, they will look favorably at the BJP, and that will have an effect also in West Bengal. So, but at what cost?
He has the gall to tell us that we should welcome Bangladeshi Muslims into this country. Disgusting. It's absolutely, this level of Hindu phobia which is being exhibited right now is absolutely disgusting and appalling.
What Hindu phobia are you talking about, Raghav?
This is the Hindu phobia. She is equating the persecuted Hindus by saying, with Muslims, by saying that Muslims are not welcome. Should Muslims or foreigners be made to feel welcome in this country? What is she saying?
So you are reiterating that Bangladeshi Muslims are infiltrators and illegal Bangladeshi Hindus in our country are not.
Because they persecute Hindus, so they will not be tolerated.
I don't know what evidence we have. Bangladesh foreign minister has just hit back at India saying we don't know what you're talking about and what religious persecution you're talking about. It may be a theocratic country, Raghav. It also is secular, but all right, okay.
You have to,
a policy on the basis of religion,
not secular.
A policy on the basis of religion just doesn't cut the ice, is not what this country wants. But I'm sorry, my debate tonight, Raghav, is not about the merits of this bill. The bill has been passed. The bill has been passed. It's not about the merits of the bill anymore. The debate tonight, Rajiv Pandey, is what is it that the centre is going to do for Northeast India? Did you forget about Northeast India, Rajiv Pandey? When you designed this bill, you promised them all the outsiders will be thrown out, and now you're breaking that promise to Northeast India. Rajiv Pandey.
Tanvi ji, first of all, I would like to congratulate the people of this country for passing of this historic bill, Citizenship Amendment Act, because it is for human rights of the people who are persecuted on the basis of only one thing, that is religion. You know, this whole bill has come because when India was partitioned, there was a Nehru-Liaquat Pact, and that pact was thrown out into the dustbin. Congress party could not enforce that act, and that's why Hindus were completely persecuted, not only Hindus, Sikhs in Afghanistan, Christian in Pakistan. So that is the basis. Second point, you know, why this situation has arisen? Because 3 states who are like Islamic states, they are believing that Islam is their religion. And comparing these 3 Islamic states with Nepal, Bhutan,
what?
No, can I just make a point?
No, you can't.
Tanvi,
You are
please.
repeating
Tanvi,
what
please.
your
Give me 30
own
seconds. No.
former
Tanvi ji.
BJP president, our current home minister, has now said it multiple times through the day today in Rajya Sabha, through the day in Lok Sabha 2 days ago. Mr. Rajiv Pandey, I'm asking you, what are you going to do about Northeast?
Give me 30 seconds. Give me 30 seconds.
30
Give me 30 seconds. I will talk about Northeast.
Please don't waste the time of our viewers. There are all very well-informed viewers of Mirror Now who know exactly what the BJP's argument is.
No. Today you should...
Yes, they know what the government's argument is. Everybody heard Amit Shah.
Take a glass of cold water, so you will be comfortable. So now the third point is comparing our neighbors like Bhutan, Sri Lanka, China, anybody with these three Islamic states. Sri Lanka is a secular country. No Hindus are being persecuted. That is a different issue of Tamil issue. In Tibet, people are not being persecuted because of the religious things. It is only in these three states people are persecuted. Now I am coming to Northeast.
Yes.
Look, today what are you trying to show? And Neerja ji is saying, you know, BJP is the single largest party in Northeast. We have cadre on the ground. We have every district, every taluka, every ward, we have our candidates. We know what is happening in Northeast. Don't worry about that. These things are done. And we all know how these things are being done. Who are behind them? These kind... No, allow me. No, we know.
You have had to shut down internet. You've had to call the paramilitary forces. You've pulled out forces from Kashmir for Northeast. You've deployed army in parts of Tripura and Assam.
Tanvi ji, today you are very disturbed.
I am disturbed.
Today you are
Why
very
are you
disturbed.
not? Look at what is happening in Northeast. Does it not matter to you? Do the Northeastern states not become part of India? What are you telling me? Of course I am disturbed. Why are you not disturbed? You've had to shut down internet. You've had to bring in the forces. Look at the visuals of the protests that have come from Assam. Students are protesting there. People are unhappy. This government has refused to listen to them. And you're telling me, why should I be disturbed? Look at the visuals on your screens from 5 different places in Assam, Rajiv Pandey. How can you be calm when this is what is happening in a part of our country? Assam and the rest of the states of northeastern India are as much a part of this country as a Mumbai or a Delhi is. Would you be this calm, Rajiv Pandey, I ask you, if this was happening in the national capital tonight?
You see who are behind them, who is fomenting these kind of troubles. People are aware. These infiltrators are coming on the street and creating problem. Law will take its own course. Don't worry about that.
Oh, these are Bangladeshi
only in Tripura, army has been called. And in... Yes, certainly. Certainly, because they know very well. From the whole country, I am telling on your channel, whoever is the Bangladeshi infiltrator, he should pack his bag and go back to Pakistan or Bangladesh from where they have come. You know, law is not connected to Indian Muslims. Law has nothing to do with the Indian Muslims. It is about the distinction
before I go across
between
to
the people
Clyde and Kovai,
before
I go across to Clyde and Kovai, Rajiv Pandey, for what you are saying,
these kind of things will not help. You are trying to create problem in this country.
Okay, let me just once quickly go back to Arijit Sen. Arijit Sen has a vast amount of experience in covering Northeast as a journalist, has in-depth insights on what's happening and what has happened in the past and what we are witnessing right now. Mr. Sen, do you agree that this is just a handful of people, perhaps, you know, those with Bangladeshi Muslims or those looking for some political gains who are fueling the fire, and this is not the generic sentiment in Northeast? Is that what it is?
No, certainly not. I think it's a complete misreading of the situation, and this misreading certainly helps the BJP. The basic idea, I think what we should keep in mind is that secularism is a basic structure of the Constitution. It's incorporated in the preamble of the Constitution. Now, next, the object of this bill, that putting a qualification based on religion has no rational nexus to achieve that unless that object is to project India as a Hindu state, is something which we have to keep in mind. In 1979, when this entire protest happened, and then that protest sort of led to the Assam Accord, and then we suddenly had the NRC in 2014 based on Governor S.K. Sinha's report also, and a lot of these fears and apprehensions which were there about these illegal migrants. How many people have been actually deported. If you look into the Minister of State for Home's answer to this, I think there are less than 10 people who've been deported. So also the kind of people whose names have not appeared on the NRC, about 1.9 million people are there whose names have not appeared in the NRC. They have not yet received a notice. So they have not yet received a notice because all of this is happening because of a very planned design.
Take place, sir.
The Citizenship Amendment Bill
due process
will be
take
the
place.
Citizenship Amendment Bill.
Due process will take place. All the infiltrators will be given chance to prove.
The Citizenship Amendment,
the
Citizenship Amendment Bill is being brought forward.
Islamic State that we can
Rajiv
excuse
Patil,
somebody.
let him finish, please. Then you can
No, you are only disturbing us. Today you has disturbed Raghav Avasthi and myself, not allowing me to speak even one line.
You are telling me why are you getting disturbed? Why are you looking disturbed? I am amazed you are not feeling disturbed with what is happening in the Northeast. That's all. Now let Arijit Singh finish.
You are disturbing. You did not allow me to make my point. You did not allow me to make my point.
Can I come in now?
You were giving me history, geography lessons that I've already heard from your party in the last 1 week.
So with Pakistan with Nepal, how you can compare about the Pakistan with Sri Lanka, how you can compare Pakistan with China, how you can compare Pakistan with Brahmadesh. These are secular countries. And Islamic State, what Castro Sahab is saying, Christians are being abducted in Pakistan. Every month, many Hindu girls and Christians girls are forcibly converted.
How many people, how many illegal immigrants in our country will get citizenship from this? How many? Rajiv Pandey, how many people? How many people will get citizenship from this country? Give me a number. Give me a number. How many people will get citizenship via this bill? How many?
Do you think that I have come with the number?
Of course. You designed an entire policy without finding out how many people will get added as citizens of our country. You made an entire policy without realizing how many of these Pakistani, Bangladeshi and Afghanistan refugees are living in our country. This is not for new people. This is not for lakhs of people who are standing at the border of Pakistan and India or Bangladesh, India telling us, give us citizenship today. Don't mislead people. This law is for those who've already lived in this country. There is a cut-off date for this law. So now you have to have the number. How many people? How many people? Go find the answer and then come back with facts. Don't give me rhetorics. The rhetorics don't work on this channel. Clyde Crasto, let me come to you and ask you this question. If you and your allies believe so strongly, then why is it that you were not able to put up a better fight for such an important issue in the parliament? Why is it that your ally Shiv Sena walked out and did not vote on this issue? Does it not matter?
Well, the Shiv Sena, it does matter. I mean, the question that you're saying does not matter. How, I mean, it does matter. Now, they walked out. We'll see what is happening. See, what we are doing here with Shiv Sena is working on a common minimum program. And that's what we are working together for, the betterment of people of Maharashtra. So we will work on that. If you have to talk about what is happening, I mean, I've been listening to everybody talk. The point here is, if you're talking about the Citizen Amendment Bill, when we talk about getting the citizenship of our country, there are certain norms, rules that come along with it. Now, if the criteria have to be fulfilled by those things, then why add something new to it? I mean, it does not matter from what religion you come from. If you fulfill the criteria of a citizenship, then it all stands true. If you're going to add different religions to it and not add one religion to it, the questions are going to be raised, noise is going to be raised. The root of this whole thing was the people of Assam did not want outsiders. They never spoke about religion. They did not want people from outside, and that's what the whole contention was. And now what has happened is, after you have done the NRC, first you went on to say that there will be lakhs and lakhs of crores of people who will be not fulfill the norms of the NRC. Then you realize 19 lakh people are the only the number that you got. And out of the 19 lakhs, 16 lakh were Hindus and 3 lakh were Muslims. So now what happens to that? What are you going to do with the 16 lakh people? So that's why this whole thing has come about. So this is the whole point. The Assamese did not speak about religion. They only spoke about outsiders. And what was the hurry to do all this thing? You could have gone through the due process. And my point here is very simple. If a citizenship is granted on the certain norms, values and laws, then why do you add something? No, why add something to? Why don't you go according to the Constitution? Why amend?
This is the due process.
How does it matter what religion you are? If you do not fulfill the norms, Tanvi, if you do not fulfill the norms of being a citizen of my country,
Does not matter what religion you belong to. You do not fulfill the norms, you cannot be the citizen. That's simple as that according to the constitution. So why add something to it? The whole thing goes back to when you did the NRC and you found out that the 16 lakh Hindus cannot be added to it. That's when this whole process has done. Do the process again, check out everything, do the work properly, groundwork properly. Maybe you made a mistake, maybe it's a change, and get everything together, and on the grounds of the constitution, according to the laws and norms, grant the citizenship to whoever's there in that state.
Okay, is there a response, Rajiv Pandey, to this? That this has been brought in because there were loopholes in your NRC?
I'm sorry, if I could just come in here.
Tanvi, I want to respond.
Tanvi,
Okay,
Tanvi,
one by one.
My NRC.
I just wanted to
One
sort of make
by
one
one,
point.
Rajiv Pandey, and then Arijit, I'm coming to you next. Yes, Rajiv Pandey, yes.
I'll tell you one thing. What Castro Sahab is saying, that whatever is the minimum criteria, that if somebody fulfills, then you can get the citizen. That is all available now also. It was an extraordinary situation because the minorities in these three countries are being persecuted. You know, NCP and Congress doesn't do anything which does not catch the Muslim votes. So let them do their business. Let them do their politics. We are for the human rights of the people who are being persecuted only on the ground of religion. He said, what is the object of the act? I am saying it is not on the religion. It is on the people who are facing religious persecution because of being minority in Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan.
We have understood.
If you don't understanding the basic reason,
you feel for Pakistani Hindus, you don't feel for Rohingyas. I got it. You don't feel for women and children who are Rohingyas at all. But you feel for Pakistani Hindus. I got it. I can understand the sentiment. It's showing on your face. Yes. The pain is showing on your face. Let me come back to the point.
The Rohingyas are terrorists. That's the problem.
There it comes. This is the mindset. All Muslims are terrorists, so we want to let them come in our country.
No. Nobody is saying that.
And Christians and Sikhs are different. There it comes.
I'm sorry. Rohingyas. No, there are security concerns with regard to Rohingyas specifically. There are security concerns with regard to Rohingyas. You go to a Rohingya camp and then you'll figure out the level of radicalization. In Bangladesh, Rohingyas were involved in a pogrom against
Even
Hindus.
In Delhi, you
this
can
is the
find
biggest
that
concern. I'm not an Islamophobe and neither am I a dhimmi and an apologist for Islamists.
Okay. Arijit Sen wanted to make a point.
Everybody knows that. But the problem is that all of the people
it's
on
ironic,
this panel,
you know, if I can make my point, other than the two gentlemen who are going blue in their face talking.
They should be happy to
If I could make a point, please.
Yes.
Before the gentleman goes blue in his face, trying to, like, he's clearly an he's saying that he's not an Islamophobe. Now, the thing is that it's ironic that the BJP, which is not supporting the minorities in their own country, suddenly becomes a minority rights champion in the neighboring countries. It's really ironic. The other aspect is that the due process bit, which the gentleman was shouting, going blue in his face, due process, if you go into the Foreigners Tribunal, where people are being tried, has he ever been to a Foreigners Tribunal? Does he even know how people were there's just basic clerical errors are sending people to detention centers? NRC and CAB are going in a synchronized manner. This is what we have to keep in mind. And again, to repeat for the nth time, that if your heart really bleeds, it should bleed for the Constitution. Secularism is a basic pillar of the Constitution, which is there in the preamble to the Constitution. If all these people suddenly who've become champions of Hindu rights are talking, clearly they've thrown the Constitution out of the window. And that is what we have to keep our eyes and ears towards. And we have to focus on that because, as I said, again to repeat, detention centers are being built not just in Assam, but also in different parts of India. It is happening through a design. This bill fails the basic test also of reasonability, also of why it's being brought about. So these things are something which are being done through a design and people are being stigmatized. The stigmatization aspect of people is something which you have to keep in mind. At least 50 people have taken their lives in Assam itself when the NRC exercise was being carried out, and you want to carry out that NRC exercise again? For what joy? To kill more people? To send people to detention centers? Out of the 1.9 million people whose names have not appeared in the NRC, most of them are Hindus. It's not about a question of Hindus and Muslims also, it's a question of secularism which is being defenestrated.
Yes. Okay, Kovai Satyan has been patiently listening to everybody.
Christian Jain, then you get to stay.
And
if
I
you
want
are
to go across
Asia
to
Bibi,
Kovai.
if you're being persecuted in Pakistan, you get to stay. Just a second. Tanvi ji, just a second. I want to ask one question to Clyde Crasto.
Okay.
Has he heard about Asia Bibi and how she was persecuted under the blasphemy laws in Pakistan? As a Christian, his heart does not beat for Asia Bibi.
NCP and Congress supports that prosecution.
Like
now I want to talk. I've been patiently listening. Now I'll talk to Raghav Awasthi.
That is not
I'll talk to Raghav Awasthi.
Okay, Clyde is responding to Raghav. Clyde is responding to Raghav. Yes.
Yes, please.
Christians.
अरे सुन राघव अवस्थी मेरे भाई सुन तू क्लाइड क्रास्टो के नाम पे मत जा मेरे भाई मेरे देश में क्या रहा उसकी बात कर आजू बाजू में क्या रहा उसकी मुझे फिक्र नहीं है मुझे मेरे देश में क्या रहा उसकी फिक्र है तू मेरे नाम पे मत जा मेरे भाई मेरे को दुख होता है तेरे सोच से मेरे को दुख होता है मेरे नाम पे ना जा मेरे भाई तू मेरे साथ जो है ना मेरे देश में क्या हो रहा है उसकी बात कर मैं क्लाइड क्रास्टो होगा लेकिन ठीक है लेकिन बाजू के देश में क्या हो रहा है पाकिस्तान में क्या रहा है मेरे देश की पड़ी है आज मेरे देश में आसाम में क्या हो रहा है मेरे भाइयों को क्या रहा है बहनों को क्या रहा है उसकी पड़ी है मेरे भाई तू मेरे भाई है मेरे देशवासी है इस सब चीजों की बात कर यार क्लाइड क्रास्टो के नाम पे मत जा और ये सवाल बेहुदा सवाल मत कर मुझे तुझे बात करना और 5 भाषा में बात करता हूं मेरे देश की तो बोले तो वह 4-5 भाषा में तेरे साथ बात करने को तैयार हूं यार तो नाम पे मत जा ये सब छोड़ बातें आज जो हो रही उस चीजों पे बातें कर यार क्यों जा रहे हो इस चीज पे तेरे को बात करना है कौन सा भाषा में बात करना है मराठीमध्ये बोलायचं तुला मराठीमध्ये बोलायचं काय महाराष्ट्राची भाषा मराठीमध्ये आहे मैं मराठीमध्ये बोलतो हम नहीं सुन मेरी बात सुन मेरे प्रधानमंत्री जो है और मेरे गृह मंत्री जो उनकी भाषा गुजराती तने गुजराती में बोलવું છે મારી સાથે ગુજરાતીમાં વાત કરવી છે તો બોલ તારી સાથે ગુજરાતીમાં વાત કરો
Okay, point made, Clyde, point made. Okay, let's not get derailed.
એમની સાથે પણ ગુજરાતીમાં વાત
Let's not get derailed as much as we would like to hear you speak in different languages because that is actually a reflection of what this country is. Yes. Thousands of languages and dialects, millions of gods and dozens of religion. I get the point, Clyde. Kovai has patiently waited and I want to go to Sr Neerja Chowdhury as well. But before that, I want to ask Kovai Satyan this question. Mr. Satyan, why did your party back this bill? You know, at a time where the entire country is asking, what about refugees from other nations? They're also living in the same country. They also should deserve citizenship. They've also been persecuted and run away from their nations and come to us, including Sri Lankans. Then why did you back a bill which is so selective in nature?
Thanks for the opportunity, Tanvi. We as a government better understand the purpose of this bill than any other state governments in India because we certainly have thousands of people who had come to Tamil Nadu believing that this state, which is a part of India, will give them livelihood and lives for the last 50, 40, 30, 40 years. The Sri Lankan refugees who were displaced because of the war are living here 40 years and the government, to the best of its efforts, are given the livelihood for these people. Now, viewing this CAB into the spectrum of religion is not in our mind. We viewed it solely on the point of humanitarian grounds and humanity. So I would say none of these political parties or none of these people who are debating here can proudly vouch saying that the voice raised by BJP today in the parliament for CAB was the voice of those repressed minorities. Or none of them can say that the repressed minorities in these three nations wanted to come to India and they have sought Indian citizenship. And none of them can say. So, but we believe that the step taken by BJP is their voice because even their voice are being suppressed in their respective nation and country. So they have opened the door of humanity and we believe that caste, creed, religion, race or whatever is all below humanity and humanity should prevail.
So did you
if there is
ask
an opportunity
BJP,
for these minorities
when will
to come to a place
for the Sri Lankan Tamilians who are in this country and who came to your state and are hoping for the same treatment,
there is a
why have they
slight
been
difference.
left out? The point is not that anybody is against these people coming here.
No.
The point is to say why only these people and why not others? What did the Tibetans do? What did the Sri Lankans do? What did the Burmese do? Why are they being left out?
We can expand the scope.
So has that
we can still expand the scope to why the Uyghurs of China, why the we can still expand the scope why the Uyghurs of China are not being taken, why the Syrians are not being. We can expand the scope, but let's understand there is a principal difference between Sri Lankan Tamilians displaced and passing of this bill. As far as the Indian government is concerned, whoever comes into this territory are still treated as illegal immigrants. So for 30-40 years, the people who came from Sri Lanka are being treated as only illegal immigrants. There is no nomenclature as refugees or whatsoever it is. So there is a legal framework which needs to fight it out. Now we are happy that in the name of humanity, the central government is opening up few avenues of considering people who are displaced and who are minorities in the other nation can be given citizenship. So we have to work through that legal framework. So that's what I am saying. We see this as opening the doors, and we certainly believe and hope and we are convinced that these doors shall be opened for many more people who are in similar nature.
Closer
so it doesn't open
to the
once
state
for and
elections
get
in
shut.
Tamil Nadu, I am sure an indication of the door opening further and wider, and including Sri Lankan Tamils will also happen. Nirja Chowdhury wanted to make a point.
It is already there. It is there. It is there. It is there in our manifesto which we gave in the Lok Sabha elections also. And it is there in our manifesto that the genocide which happened in Sri Lanka, we need justice for the same.
Yes, but
so
right
let's
now
rise
we don't
above
feel
this
so much
caste,
for them.
creed, race and all
Probably
this.
a year later,
and let's
closer
look
to
humanity
elections in
into the
Tamil
picture.
Nadu. Right now we are feeling more for Pakistani Hindus. Nirja Chowdhury, go ahead please.
My point is, you know, that the instances that the Home Minister cited in Parliament today in the Rajya Sabha and others have also mentioned about minorities in these countries not getting their due, there is substance in that charge. Certainly these countries have not treated their minorities as they should have been treated. But we chose at the time of independence not to be a theocratic state. We chose to be different. India chose to be different, to respect its minorities, to respect the diversity, the huge diversity that we have in this country, of which we've been very proud. And our philosophy has been to live and let live, which has really been, that tolerance has been the underlying force of Hinduism over the ages. So now to say, to give them their due, though I feel the time has come to seriously close your borders. You cannot indefinitely have people coming into this country when we have huge economic problems, so much joblessness, so much poverty, so much underdevelopment. So we cannot afford to be so generous कि आते जाओ और citizenship मिलता जाएगा. But what I'm saying is that, you know, to single out that infiltrators who are Hindu will become refugees and get citizenship, but infiltrators who came over a period and their children would have been born here, they would have known no other society, no other country, but they, because of their religion, are going to be treated as illegal and as infiltrators. That is the painful part in a country which is subscribed to other values. At least that is what we've been brought up on, and that is what we were proud of. Today, to have that turned on its head, that is painful.
So this is what will happen, and I'm now going to keep politics and ideologies aside and ask Rajiv Pandey and Raghav to just calmly please try and answer some of the questions I have. Okay, one minute, Raghav. Let's just get a couple of constructive points here, outside of the rhetorics. Mr. Rajiv Pandey, can you help me understand, until and unless you strike a deal with Bangladesh and they agree, which they don't look like that they will agree. Right now, they are making big comments and responding to you and your party and your government, saying that no, well, there is no religious persecution in our country. But let's just assume that by the time you manage to strike a deal with Bangladeshis to say, please take your people back, what's going to happen? These detention centers that Dorojit is talking about, are you going to pick up people and put them in these detention centers? Women and children and their grandchildren, people who've lived there since the 1970s and 80s, become part of this country and this society, will they be put in detention centers indefinitely because no country wants to take them back?
Tanvi, as far as the Arjit Singh ji's information that detention center is being made, I have nothing to say about that. But
there are existing
our
ones.
Home Minister has said that any infiltrator who has...
Yeah,
I know that. Just allow me to complete. You are jumping. Exactly. I know that. I'm aware about that. What I'm saying, he's saying in Bombay also it is being made. What I'm saying, Neerja ji is saying that we cannot take people from outside. The people, the Hindus, Christian in Pakistan, in 1947, Christo Sahab's party divided this country, that time they did not ask those people what to do with them. Now they are being persecuted. Nobody can say this, that there is no religious persecution in these three countries.
No, answer my question, please.
In Afghanistan, more than 7 lakh Sikhs converted to 7,000. No, I'm saying government will work on how to send them back to their own countries. Government will work to how to send them to their own country, whether
Meanwhile,
it is
they will live in
Bangladesh,
detention
Pakistan or
centers.
Afghanistan.
No. To the best of my knowledge, there is
What
no
is law?
framework as
Law
such.
will take its
I
own
think
course.
that is not the
Law-
right thing. No. You don't have any legal framework to go to Bangladesh and talk about Rohingyas and taking them back.
No,
I'm sorry, gentlemen, you are mistaken. Until unless you have their citizens inside your territory, wherein those people want to go back, you have an option.
Okay, I have another question. Raghav, maybe you can help me understand this, since you also believe, about the widespread religious persecution that's happening in these countries. How many of these people currently would be eligible? Those who are already living. This is not a law for people today, tomorrow, day after, next 1 year who are standing at the border trying to come inside our country, legally or illegally. This is a law amendment that has been made for people who already are living in our country, illegal immigrants or refugees if you want to call them. How many of these people stand to benefit, just to understand how wide or how big is this problem?
I think there are lakhs of people in Assam like that, and also the rest of the country. If you are talking about only people from Bangladesh, as far as Pakistani Hindu refugees are concerned, they are all living in camps in Rajasthan. There were a few of them who were about to be deported from Jodhpur, and they were not deported after the central government's intervention. So yes, this problem is widespread. There are so many people, even in Assam for that matter, there are people who have to cross over. Not even in Assam, even in West Bengal, there are people, Hindu Bengalis, who have crossed over, Bangla-speaking Hindus, because they are being persecuted. So whoever it is who has been here till the cutoff, who was here on the cutoff date that is mentioned in the bill, will be absorbed.
So we don't know how many.
It could be
Great it could be 30,000. It could be 30,000, 50,000, 1 lakh, 10 lakh, 20 lakh, 50 lakhs. I don't know.
I can say one thing.
Yeah.
No, I can say one thing, that no additional burden would be put on Assam and the other northeastern states.
So people who are living there will be thrown to other states?
I will personally open up my home for all of these people.
Okay, so Raghav Avasi is opening up his homes. What happens to the rest? Rajiv Pandey, people who are already, these illegal immigrants living in Northeast. What happens to them? Are they thrown to other states? Will Maharashtra have to deal with them? Raghav?
Oh my God, you are talking about them as if they are not human beings.
No,
just
I'm
because they are Hindus.
No,
and
then why exempt the Northeast?
The utter lack of Hinduphobia that has infected our body politic.
Then why exempt the Northeast?
The Northeast has already absorbed enough of a burden because of religious
persecution. But they can't legitimately live there, right? If we are giving them citizenship, if we are legitimizing them and giving them citizenship, then we will have to move them out of the Northeast, because this government has promised the Northeastern states that they are exempted from this law. So if these people who are living there, illegal immigrants from these countries, are given citizenship of India, they can't live in Northeast India. They will have to move to rest of India.
They will be given land elsewhere in the country.
Politics.
They will be given land elsewhere
and
in the
rhetorics.
country, and they will be really happy there because
their lives here are the questions. I'm out of time.
The honor of the women would be safe.
I'm out of time. I'm going to thank all of our panelists for joining us right now. Here are the questions that the government needs to ask. First up, what is going to be your strategy now to quell what's happening, to tackle what's happening, to reach out to the people in Northeast? Because right now, there has been curfew imposed in Guwahati. Northeast is on the edge. Many parts are burning. People are angry. So the government needs to tell us now, what is your strategy? How will you deal with this situation? The government needs to tell us just how many people will benefit from the Citizenship Amendment Bill as of now. If it becomes a law tomorrow and the President ratifies it or signs on it, then how many people get the citizenship of our country basis this new law? The government needs to tell us what happens to those who are unable to prove basis documents that they are legitimate people who are eligible for this citizenship? Will they be thrown out? Will they be put in detention centers? Will Bangladesh or Pakistan or Afghanistan take these people back? The government needs to tell us. If the door has been opened on humanitarian grounds, what happens to the others? What about the Sri Lankan Tamils? What about the Tibetans? Are they also going to get the same treatment at some point of time? Or are our humanitarian feelings only for certain religion from certain countries? A policy based on religion doesn't reflect the secular fabric of our country, doesn't even go as per the ethos of our country. But the bill has now been passed. We now need to ensure that whatever rules have been made are implemented and no injustice is done to those who are legitimately part of India. No injustice is done to those in Northeast who are fighting this battle for years together. So we're going to keep a very close eye on the situation, especially what happens in Assam and rest of the states there. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. There's been a bit of a confusion right now between the Citizenship Amendment Bill, what its motive is, what it intends to do, and what's the controversy there. And of course, the National Registry of Citizens, the NRC. And Aarti, in fact, is joining me right now to try and make us understand how the two are different, even though they are linked. Aarti?
You know, a lot of people have been using these terms very interchangeably, the NRC, the CAB. We're going to try and break this down for you and explain the difference between these two very crucial legislations. Now, the CAB is a Citizenship Amendment Bill. Essentially, as a result of the CAB, 6 persecuted minorities from 3 nations will be given citizenship in India. This expedites the process for them gaining citizenship in India as a result of being persecuted minorities. This is refugees from 3 countries, that's Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan. The National Register of Citizens, or the NRC, is essentially aimed at removing illegal immigrants. So while one bill, that is a Citizenship Amendment Bill, grants citizenship, the other in fact takes away and pulls out illegal immigrants from the system. Now the second big difference between the two is that Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Parsis and Christians are eligible. 6 religions are eligible. If you are a persecuted minority from these 6 religions from the 3 neighboring countries, then you can apply for citizenship in India and the process is expedited. On the other hand, the NRC has nothing to do with religion. If you are an illegal immigrant, if you can't prove that you have certain documents, irrespective of your religion, you are pulled out of the system and you may either be deported or you have to prove your nationality. Now, the third big change is that citizenship is to refugees who've entered India on or before the 31st of December 2014, whereas the National Registry of Citizens, the cutoff date for determination of Indian citizenship is 24th March 1971. So even the dates of your eligibility are different between these two. Now, the Citizenship Amendment Bill is applicable across India, except most parts of the Northeast. Now, we've seen a lot of protests in the Northeast, and to assuage them, the government has made it clear that it will not be applicable to large parts of it. On the other hand, the National Register of Citizens is applicable only to Assam right now, but the government has made it clear that it plans to introduce laws that will make NRC applicable across the country. But currently, NRC is applicable only in Assam, whereas the CAB is applicable all across India except most parts of Northeast. Now, we've seen protests across the Northeast over this particular bill. The government has been trying to assuage them, saying that, you know, this is not really applicable to you. But most of the protests have been in Assam, which is still seeing protests over the issue because large parts are not excluded from the ambit of the Citizenship Amendment Bill. In the NRC, residents of Assam have to prove their citizenship via certain documents. If they have those documents, they can say, we are eligible for citizenship. If they don't, then they have to go through a legal proceeding before any decision is taken on their future. So, two very contradictory, two very different particular bills, because one aims to give you citizenship, the other is aiming to weed you out if you are not a citizen of India.
So largely, if we see, once we have a national NRC, you know, all the illegal immigrants will be identified and spotted and put on record, and of those from religious minorities in these 3 nations could then get the citizenship. Everybody else could be thrown out, or at least that's what the government is telling us that it tends to do. Thanks so much, Aarti, for really clarifying that. We're completely out of time on this edition of the Urban Debate. Let's quickly actually go across to Sanjana, who's joining us with the last word. Sanjana, NRC is a big issue. Citizen Amendment Bill is a big issue. but so is the security of those already living in this country, our citizens, their security, especially women.
That's right, Tanvi, because in a state, and the state that I'm talking about, no surprises there, is Uttar Pradesh, is very happy to hold marathon meetings on women's safety and unleash their anti-Romeo or Romeo squads at a drop of a hat. But this government is doing a rather shoddy job of ensuring women are actually safe. So, Tanvi, tonight we're going to be looking at two gang rape cases, one more horrific than the other, and unfortunately eerily similar, because in both cases, there's one thing common. The police have not done their jobs. So what good are all those promises if it's only on paper or for the media? That's what we're going to be looking at on The Last Word.